In this module, we are going to present you a bibliography about gender and LGBT diversity and inclusion. Women's studies are an interdisciplinary academic field devoted to topics concerning women, feminism, gender, and politics. It often includes feminist theory, women's history and social history, women's fiction, women's health, feminist psychoanalysis, and the feminist and gender studies influence practice of most of the humanities and social sciences. Lots of books and research were written. An example, Linda Nochlin, Why Are There No Great Women Artists?, written in 1972. In the late 60s and early 70s, Linda Nochlin looked at lists of genius artists and asked herself, where are the women? This observation led her to analyze the reasons why there were no great women artists in history. In brief, she discovered that the system was set up against women and their absence was used as a self-validating fact. What were these conditions? First, women were not seen as creative, so they were seen as not capable of producing the art that was most valued, complex history paintings with a lot of figures. Second, even if someone were to admit that women were creative, they still would not have been able to compose complex history paintings because they were excluded from the necessary instruction, nude drawing classes. So, how could a woman paint a convincing human figure in complex poses if she could not study anatomy? LGBT studies are aimed at understanding the phenomenon of homosexuality in the human experience. Alfred Kinsey was the author of a famous research paper on sexual behavior of American people. Kinsey, himself a bisexual, was an American biologist, professor of entomology and zoology, and sexologist who in 1947 founded the Institute for Sex Research at Indiana University. In his studies, he demonstrated that heterosexuality and homosexuality are the extremes of a continuum and that homosexual behavior was more common in American life than previously thought. The Kinsey scale is used to describe a person's sexual orientation based on their experience of response at a given time. The two books reporting his research are the famous Sexual Behavior in the Human Male, published in 1948, and Sexual Behavior in the Human Female, published in 1953. Lots of research was dedicated to analyzing the roots of biases and stereotypes. In his 2011 masterpiece, Thinking Fast and Slow, Daniel Kahneman, a psychologist and Nobel Prize winner in economics, helps us understand how this works. He introduces the reader to two models of thinking, System 1 and System 2, a distinction often used in psychology. Our intuitive System 1 runs automatically without much effort or control. Most of us form first impressions based on social categories such as sex, race, age, or social class. The deliberative System 2, in contrast, is based on conscious reasoning, requires effort, and is controlled. To overcome unconscious biases, we need to activate our System 2. Once learned, stereotypes and prejudices are resistant to change. People embrace anecdotes that reinforce their prejudices while ignoring experiences that contradict them. Socio-philosophical approaches are aimed at building new thought models in order to promote cultural change. An example of this approach is the work of Martha Nussbaum. She identified the category of disgust as one of the principal causes of discrimination. She was born in New York in 1947 and is the founding president and president emeritus of the Human Development and Capability Association. Nussbaum found that people can discriminate based on their own level of disgust for other people's behavior or physical state. What kinds of images can disgust us? Seeing a disabled person struggle to speak, smelling the heavy spices emanating from someone's sweat, seeing two men kissing each other passionately, imagining the blood of a woman's period. All these can elicit feelings of disgust. Taking note of how disgust has justified the submission of entire social groups, Nussbaum finds that disgust is a basis for judgment. She maintains that individuals tend to remove the idea of their own physical defects or their animal instincts through the projection of a fear of contamination. In The Fragility of Goodness, Nussbaum writes, becoming a citizen of the world often means taking a solitary path, a kind of exile, far from the comfort of certain truths, from the reassuring feeling of being surrounded by people who share our same convictions and ideals.